Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Love, Lies, and Betrayal. Let's move to the video. Still remember that day as if it were yesterday. At first there was nothing special about it, just an ordinary day, just an ordinary moment in my life. But then a message from Agnes arrived. Agnes is the mother of my best friend Michael. To be honest, we were never close. We exchanged a few words here and there, especially when I helped her with things that Michael couldn't do himself. He was in Europe building his career, so he couldn't be there for his mother. Like I was, we weren't family, but we had a casual acquaintance, the kind of friendship that felt more like distant strangers who happened to cross paths. I didn't think much of her beyond that. It was late in the afternoon when the message came. I had just finished work and was about to unwind for the evening. I was scrolling through my phone when her name popped up at first. I thought maybe she needed help with something around the house or had a question about Michael. I clicked on the message without hesitation. However, what I saw made my heart race. It wasn't a question about chores. It wasn't even the usual, "Hey, how are you?" It was a picture. I stared at the screen, unsure if I was seeing it correctly. The image wasn't explicit, but it was undeniably personal, something private, something meant for someone else. It wasn't shocking or inappropriate, but it was intimate enough to make me comfortable. Agnes wasn't a stranger. She was Michael's mother. This kind of photo had no place in my inbox. My first thought was that it must have been a mistake. Maybe she had meant to send it to someone else. I could think of a dozen reasons why it might have happened, but I couldn't stop looking at it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wasn't sure what to do. Was this some kind of joke? Was she trying to send a mage message I didn't know? The whole situation felt wrong. But something about the picture nagged at me, piquing my curiosity. I shook the thoughts away, convincing myself it was just an accident, just a mix-up in her contacts. So I turned off my phone, but even after setting it down, I couldn't stop thinking about it for the next hour. I paced my apartment trying to forget it. I didn't want to overthink it. After all, it wasn't like I had any romantic interest in Agnes. She was Michael's mother. Sure, I had noticed her before in passing, but nothing more than a fleeting thought. The idea of anything happening between us was ridiculous. Still, there was a nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Something about that picture haunted me. I wondered if I had misunderstood the situation, or if she was trying to tell me something. The curiosity ate at me, but I decided to let it go that night. I went to bed trying to move past it, but deep down I knew this wouldn't be the last time I thought about it. I just hoped it was some strange coincidence. I didn't know how wrong I was. I wish I could say I forgot about it, but I couldn't. No matter how hard I tried to push it from my mind, that picture lingered. It wasn't the kind of thing I could easily brush off, especially knowing that the woman in it was Michael's mother, someone I had always respected. It felt strange, unsettling, like something was off, and I didn't know how to process it. The next day was a blur. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind kept drifting back to the picture. I told myself it was nothing, I was overthinking. Surely it was just an accident, but the more I tried to rationalize it, the more uncomfortable I felt. I had almost convinced myself it was just a bizarre misunderstanding until I got another message from Agnes. I stared at the notification for minutes, my finger hovering over the screen. I didn't know if I should open it, but my curiosity got the better of me this time. The message was short and direct, no greeting, no small talk, just one sentence. "Did you like the picture?" My stomach twisted. I sat there, frozen for a few seconds, my mind racing. There was no mistake. The first time could have been an accident, but this was intentional. She had sent me a personal photo, and now she was asking if I liked it. I felt my face go pale. What was happening? Why was she sending me photos like this? Had she done this with others? Was she just looking for attention? Or was there something deeper going on? I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I'd been in plenty of situations where I had to read between the lines, but this felt like something entirely different. I wasn't prepared for it, and I still didn't know how to handle it. I couldn't ignore the message. I didn't want to upset her, especially after all the times I had helped her when Michael wasn't around. I felt obligated to respond in some way to address the situation. So I replied carefully. That was unexpected, but yeah, it was nice. I hesitated before hitting send. Was that the right thing to say? I wasn't sure, but I couldn't think of anything else that didn't sound either too strange or too dismissive. The reply came almost instantly. "Good, would you be willing to come over today? I really need some help around the house." The message caught me off guard after everything that had happened. Now she was inviting me over my mind. Spun. I didn't know how to respond, but there was a part of me that was curious, even more curious than before. Something in me wanted to know why she was acting this way, what this meant for us. Or if it was just another strange moment I'd regret. Later I sat there staring at the screen for a long time, my thoughts racing. I knew I should ignore it. I knew I should pretend like nothing had happened, but I couldn't. The curiosity was too strong. I had to know. Okay. I finally typed back, "I'll be there in about an hour." I hit send and immediately regretted it. I wasn't sure what I was walking into, but no matter how much I wanted to turn back, I couldn't ignore the strange pull inside me. If there was more to this, if it really was just a mistake I had to see for myself. So I put on my shoes and walked out the door, not knowing what to expect, but knowing that no matter what happened next, everything was about to change. As I reached Agnes's front door, I felt a mix of confusion and anticipation. My heart pounded, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Something I wasn't ready for. The situation felt wrong. It felt strange. But there was something about it, an undeniable pull that kept me moving forward. I knocked on the door, and after a moment, Agnes opened it. She was dressed casually, nothing fancy, just a simple shirt and jeans. But something about her felt different. She smiled warmly at me, her expression soft as if nothing unusual had happened, but I couldn't ignore the tension in the air. "Thanks for coming," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I nodded, trying to stay calm, but the weight of everything that had happened still lingered between us. As I stepped inside, I could tell this place felt empty. Michael's absence was obvious. He had always been the soul of the house when he was here. Agnes had mentioned before how much she missed him, how empty it felt without him, but now I could see just how much it was affecting her. She carried a quiet sadness, something not immediately obvious, but undeniably there. "But you're there, aren't you?" If you pay attention, I followed her into the living room, and we both sat down on the couch. She avoided eye contact, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I didn't know how to start the conversation. I didn't want to jump straight into the awkwardness of the damn pictures. I wasn't even sure if she wanted to acknowledge them, but as I sat there, the silence became unbearable. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "So did you like the pictures?" Her question hung in the air and I stiffened. There was a moment of truth. I wasn't sure how to answer her without making things even more awkward. My mind spun. What did she want me to say? How was I supposed to respond? I thought about pretending it was nothing, brushing it off, but I knew that wouldn't help either. I looked at her and saw the vulnerability in her eyes. She wasn't just trying to flirt. She was searching for something. I realized this wasn't just about the pictures. Something deeper was happening. Something I couldn't ignore. I could see the loneliness hidden behind her gaze, the longing for connection evident in the way she carried herself honestly. I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "Yes, I did." It was unexpected, but I wasn't uncomfortable, just surprised. Agnes nodded as if processing my response. "I didn't mean to make things weird," she said, her voice laced with quiet honesty. "But lately, I've been feeling really lonely. Michael isn't here, and I just feel like I'm stuck in a rut, like I'm invisible." I sat there in shock, unable to fully process what she was saying. Agnes wasn't just talking about some random photo anymore. She was talking about something much deeper. The isolation. She felt the sense of being overlooked and ignored. She wasn't begging for pity. But I could feel the weight in her words. "I understand," I said, not really knowing what else to say. "That must be hard." She nodded again, her eyes shimmering with sadness and frustration. "I'm not an old woman," she said. "I'm still young. I still want to feel alive. You know, I could see where this was going, but I wasn't sure how to handle it. Instinct told me to be careful." Agnes was Michael's mother, and no matter what she said, this was a line I wasn't sure I should cross, but at the same time I understood what she meant. I couldn't imagine the loneliness she must have felt, especially with her son gone for so long, and while I knew I shouldn't let myself get too close, something about her vulnerability drew me in. "I'm not trying to make things weird," She continued, her voice almost a whisper. I guess I wanted to know if I could still feel desired, if someone out there could notice me again." There was a long pause, and I felt the weight of her words settle over us. I didn't know how to respond. I had never seen Agnes like this before, raw and open, but this wasn't a conversation I had ever prepared for, not with Michael's mother. "I just feel lonely," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "and I don't know who else to talk to about it. I didn't know how to respond. This wasn't something I could easily fix, and I didn't think it was something I should even try to fix. But the empathy I felt for her was undeniable in some ways. I knew exactly what she was feeling. Everyone feels lonely at some point in their lives, no matter who they are or how old they get. And Agnes wasn't just looking for someone to talk to, she was looking for a connection. But what did that mean for me? Was I the right person to fill that void sitting there on the couch? I felt like I had stepped into territory. I wasn't ready, for Agnes's confession lingered between us, and I wasn't sure how to react. A part of me wanted to offer comfort, but another part, maybe the more rational part, reminded me that crossing certain boundaries only led to trouble. She was Michael's mother. No matter how lonely she felt, I couldn't ignore the lines that existed between us, or at least I thought I couldn't. "I see," I said, after a long silence, trying to keep my voice steady. "I understand that things have been hard for you, but I don't think I'm the right person. I mean, I can't be the person you turn to for this." Agnes's eyes dropped to her hands in her lap, and for a moment she seemed to shrink into herself, as if the weight of her loneliness had become too heavy to carry alone. She didn't respond immediately, and I could feel the tension rising in the room. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but I had to set boundaries. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did, I just didn't know how to navigate this situation without making things more complicated. "I know," she finally muttered. "I don't expect you to have all the answers." But she fell silent again, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. "It's just, I don't know who else to talk to," she admitted, "and I feel like I'm fading away. I miss being seen. I miss feeling like I'm at her." Her words hurt me more than I expected. It wasn't just about feeling desired, it was about feeling invisible. She was still a woman, a person with desires, with hopes, with needs that went beyond the role she had played in life, and right now she was sitting in front of me, vulnerable and raw, searching for something she couldn't find in the people around her. "I understand more than you think," I said softly, my voice gentler now, "but that doesn't mean I can step in and fix it. You deserve more than someone who just feels a void because it's convenient. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are." She nodded slowly, a bitter smile on her lips. "You're right," she said, her voice tined with regret. "I know this isn't something I should have put on you. I don't even know why I thought it was okay. Okay, maybe I just wanted someone to listen, but I get it, I do." We sat in silence for a moment, the air heavy with unspoken emotions. I could tell she was processing everything, and I knew we had reached a turning point, but it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a crossroads. Would she accept the boundaries I was trying to set, or would she push back, try to convince me that what she wanted was harmless? "Sorry if I made you uncomfortable," Agnes said after a long pause, looking up at me with genuine regret. "That wasn't my intention, I just got carried away." I shook my head. "You don't have to apologize for anything I said. I just want to make sure we're both clear on where we stand. I care about you, Agnes. I do. But I can't let this go any further. Not like this." She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Maybe she had known deep down that what we were talking about wasn't something that could continue. She was looking for connection, but it had to come from somewhere else. It had to come from a place of mutual respect and honesty. "I understand," she said quietly. "I really do, and I don't want to make things awkward between us. I don't know how to deal with all these emotions." Sometimes I nodded. "I understand, I really do. We all go through things like this, but that doesn't mean we have to act on every impulse we have. We can still be friends, we can still be there for each other, but we need to keep those boundaries intact." Agnes was silent for a moment, looking at me with a mixture of gratitude and relief. "I think I needed to hear that. I was afraid you'd walk away and never talk to me again." "I'm not going anywhere," I reassured her. "I'm still here for you, but we need to be healthy. We can talk about anything, but we need to respect the space between us." She smiled, the first genuine smile I had seen from her since I arrived. "Thank you," she said softly. "Thank you for being honest with me. I guess I just needed someone to remind me of what really matters." When I left her house that day, I felt both relieved and uncertain. The air between us was lighter, but something still lingered in the back of my mind. We had talked, however, awkwardly, but I couldn't help wondering what would happen next. Would she be okay? Would things stay like this? Or would there be another moment where the lines blurred? For now, I was glad I had set boundaries. I was glad we had talked, even if it hadn't been easy. It felt like a necessary step, one neither of us could avoid. The next few days felt like a delicate balancing act. Things between Agnes and me were slightly awkward, but we tried to keep our conversation light. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both tiptoeing around an unspoken world of emotions. It was clear we had addressed the big issue, her feelings for me, but the fallout still remained like an invisible weight hanging between us. I had promised myself I wouldn't overthink it, that we could return to normal, but once you cross a line like that, even when it's acknowledged and respected, there's always something in the air that you can't ignore. The next time I went to her house to help her with something small, moving a box or fixing something in the house, the tension was obvious. She was still Agnes, kind, witty, and full of life, but there was a new layer to her, one I couldn't ignore. The warmth she usually carried was now mixed with a quiet hesitation, a subtle distance that hadn't been there before. "How's work?" she asked, offering me drink as I stepped inside. The familiar small talk, nothing too deep, nothing too personal. I appreciated the effort to keep things easy, but it felt forced. It felt like we were both pretending that nothing had happened, when in reality everything had changed, and neither of us had the courage to admit it. "It's fine," I answered, taking the glass of water she handed me. "Busy as always, you know." She nodded, smiling tightly. "Yeah, I remember the days when you were young and chasing your dreams." I could tell she wasn't just talking about work, she was talking about something deeper, the dream she once had, the life she thought she would lead, and the reality of where she was now, alone, searching for something she couldn't seem to find. "Are you still thinking about going back to school?" she asked, her voice softer, as if testing the waters. I hesitated, not sure how to answer. I had considered it for a while, but it felt like a conversation that would open too many doors I wasn't ready to step through. "I don't know," I finally said. "Maybe, but right now I'm just focused on getting through the next few months." Her gaze lingered on me for a moment before she nodded. "That makes sense. Life has a way of throwing curveballs at you." I couldn't help but think about how her words reflected her own life. She had spent so much time taking care of others, her son, her family, her job. But now, when it was time for her to take care of herself, she was struggling to figure out how to move forward. She had invested so much in the role she had played for so long that now she felt like she was losing herself. "You've been busy with everything," I said, trying to shift the topic to lighten the mood. "I hope you're taking time for yourself too." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I've tried, but it's hard. I guess I'm just used to putting everyone else first." I could understand why that weighed on her. It was the kind of exhaustion that couldn't be fixed with sleep or a vacation. It ran deeper than that. She was searching for something she couldn't quite define. She was searching for someone to see her as more than just the sum of her responsibilities. She wanted to be acknowledged, to be appreciated for who she was. I felt a sense of empathy, but also a nagging sense of caution. I had seen how quickly things could spiral when emotions were involved, and I wasn't sure I was the right person to help her find whatever it was she was looking for. As the afternoon went on, we continued talking about trivial things, the changing weather, how the neighbors were doing, but I couldn't shake the underlying tension between us, the unspoken truths we were both avoiding. At one point, I found myself staring at her, realizing how beautiful she still was. She was in her 50s, but there was something timeless about her. Maybe it was the way she lit up when she talked about the things she loved. Maybe it was the way she carried herself with a quiet grace, a confidence that remained despite everything she had been through. But then reality hit me. This wasn't just about physical attraction. This wasn't about me seeing her as some kind of fantasy or her seeking validation. This was about boundaries. This was about both of us being clear about where we stood. I shook my head to myself. It wasn't that I didn't care about her. I did more than I wanted to admit, but I couldn't lose myself in this. I couldn't let my emotions blur the lines I had drawn. Well, I should probably get going, I said, standing up. I have an early morning tomorrow. Agnes stood too, walking me to the door. I understand. Thank you again for coming by, William. I really do appreciate it, of course, I replied, forcing a small smile. Take care of yourself, okay? I will, she said softly, but I could tell there was more. She wanted to say she didn't, though. Instead, she just gave me a small, uncertain smile. Before closing the door behind me as I walked to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we still hadn't said what really needed to be said. There was still so much left unspoken, so many emotions lingering in the air between us. We still stood on opposite sides of that invisible boundary, and I wasn't sure if either of us was ready to cross it. I knew it was time to address everything lingering in the air between us. The tension had become unbearable. Agnes had been through so much, and she was searching for something that perhaps only she could define as for me. I had been doing my best to navigate the space between kindness and boundaries, trying to understand my place in her life and where I could continue to keep a safe distance, but I couldn't pretend anymore. A few days had passed since I last saw her. We hadn't talked much. No more pictures. No more texts that blurred the line between friendship and something else, but I could feel it in the way she looked at me, in the way I caught myself looking at her. I decided it was time for the conversation. Neither of us wanted to have the conversation that would finally lay everything bare. I texted her to see if she would be home that evening. She replied almost instantly, as if she had been waiting for me to make the first move. Yes, I'll be here. Come whenever you're ready. I arrived at her house shortly after dinner. The evening air was crisp, and the neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. I knocked on her door, and when she opened it, I saw the familiar warmth in her eyes, but this time there was a hint of uncertainty. She stepped aside to let me in without a word. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, and we stood there for a moment, both of us, unsure how to break the silence, not an awkward silence, but more like the stillness before a storm, as if we both knew that this moment would define everything moving forward. "Agnes," I finally said, turning to face her, "we need to talk about everything." She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she sighed and nodded, leading me into the living room. We sat on the couch, leaving a comfortable distance between us, but I could feel the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. "I know I've been distant." She began, looking into my eyes. "And I'm sorry, but I think we both know why things have felt strange lately." I nodded, trying to steady my emotions. "Yeah, I think we do." She paused, biting her lip, gathering her thoughts before she spoke again. "I'm not going to lie to you, William," she said. "I've been lonely. I'm at a stage in my life where everything feels a little unsteady, and I guess I've been searching for something to remind me that I'm still alive, that I'm more than just a mother, more than just someone's ex-wife. I want to feel wanted." I could hear the vulnerability in her voice, and it hurt more than I expected. The truth was, I had always seen Agnes as a strong, independent woman, someone who had her life together. But now seeing her like this, I realized she had been carrying far more than I had ever imagined. "Agnes, I understand," I said gently. "I really do. But I also need you to understand that I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to make things more complicated than they already are." She smiled, but it was a sad smile, a smile that acknowledged the reality of our situation. "I know I don't expect anything from you. I guess I needed to know if this was real, the things I've been feeling, if they were worth pursuing, or if it was just my mind playing tricks on me." I paused, processing her words. The feelings I had for Agnes were complicated. She was someone I respected, someone I had known for years, but this wasn't just about my attraction to her or my sympathy for her loneliness. This was about boundaries. This was about maintaining a friendship without crossing a line that neither of us could come back from. "I care about you, Agnes," I said, my voice steady, but I can't give you something that wouldn't be right for either of us. We're at different stages in our lives, and I think it's important that we respect where we are right now. She looked at me, her eyes softening, and I saw the relief in them. Maybe she had been waiting for me to say the thing we both needed to hear. I understand, William, she said, her voice barely audible. I don't want to make things harder. I just needed to hear that. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing everything that had been said. There was no dramatic conclusion, no grand gestures, just an understanding that we had both learned something about ourselves and about each other. Our relationship wouldn't be the same, but it didn't have to end on bad terms either. I think that's for the best. I added, standing up. You deserve someone who can give you what you need. I can't be that person, but I'll always be here if you need me. Agnes stood as well, walking me to the door. Thank you, William, she said, for being honest with me, for not letting this go too far. I smiled at her. The tension between us finally lifted. Take care of yourself, Agnes. I will, you too. As I walked back to my car, I realized that life isn't about finding perfect solutions or easy answers. Sometimes it's about knowing when to step back and let things unfold in their own time. Agnes and I had crossed paths at the right moment, but we were both wise enough to know when to move on. We weren't meant to be more than what we had been, and that was okay. And with that, this chapter in our story closed not with fireworks, but with a quiet understanding. Life has of throwing things at you that you never expect, things that make you question everything, and that's exactly what happened with Agnes. At first, it was just a mistake, or at least that's what I thought, a picture, an unexpected message, one thing leading to another. It felt like I was walking on a tight RPP, uncertain of what was real, what was a misunderstanding, and what was just loneliness disguised as something else. But what started as a fleeting connection turned into something much bigger. At some point, I had to stop pretending that nothing was happening between us. The attraction, the emotions building up, but so did the complications. I cared about Agnes. I really did. But deep down, I knew that crossing that line would change everything. Not just for me, but for her too. And I wanted you to think about that. Imagine being in my shoes. What would you do if someone you respected, someone close to you, reached out for something more? Would you dive in, or would you take a step back, knowing the consequences could be greater than you were willing to face? It wasn't easy, and honestly I had my doubts, moments of confusion, but I had to choose honesty with her and with myself. So, for anyone out there who finds themselves in a situation like this, take a moment to think about the bigger picture. It's not just about desire or fleeting connection. It's about respecting boundaries, knowing when to walk away, and understanding the impact of your choices. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is the right thing, not the easy thing. And in the end, that's what I did. I chose respect, I chose boundaries, and I chose to walk away before things went too far. And yeah, it hurt, but looking back, it was the right choice. So if you or me, what would you have done? Would you have taken the risk, or would you have stepped back like I did? Think about it. What would you do? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Don't forget to click the notification bell icon to stay notified.